G'day, welcome to Walking Through the Word, a YouTube series put on by the All Saints Anglican Network that looks at taking us little bit by little bit through the story of the Bible. My name's James Hornby. I'm the lead minister of the All Saints Anglican Network, a network of churches that are committed to making disciples of Jesus. One of the core things we want to do is to persuade people like you, of the truth of Jesus from the Bible. We think that the Bible's true and that it represents and opens up to us the person of Jesus, which is the revelation of who God is. And Jesus offers us life. And we want to help you live life well in Him. We want to do it together. So join me as we walk through the Word each week, unpacking a portion of the Bible, and feel free to comment, to ask questions, to get involved, and we'll work through this together. I'm so glad you can join us. Duck inside as we get on to the next episode. Well, welcome to our very first installment of Looking Through Luke, where each week we will read and explore together a section of the Gospel of Luke. Gospel comes from the Greek word euangelion, which means good news. It was actually translated in the Old English as Godspell, which meant story or news. So the Gospel of Luke is good news. It's a story told to us by the writer Luke. It's actually a story about Jesus. And over the centuries, many have asked, who is Jesus? Maybe you've asked that question. I know I have. Who is Jesus? What did Jesus come to do? What is it about Jesus that 2,000 years after he lived, we're still talking about him? Well, as we journey together in our short weekly YouTube videos looking through Luke, I hope together that we will be more equipped to answer the question, who is Jesus? And the subsequent question, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for you? Each week we're going to read a portion of that story and then spend a few minutes unpacking it. Today I'm reading from the first chapter of Luke, the first 4 verses. Let me read it. Many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those from the first who were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. With this in mind, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may know the certainty of the things that you have been taught. That's how Luke begins his story on the account of the life and ministry of Jesus. And there's a few things I want us to notice from those verses we just read. Firstly, Luke makes the point that many have undertaken to draw up an account. Particularly these last few years as we live and learn to live with coronavirus, I've heard many times news reporters and others say, we are living in unprecedented times. Maybe you've heard that too. And it seems like this idea of something being unprecedented is something to aspire for. Every news reporter, every storyteller wants to be the first, wants to get on the scene and break the news, break the story. What we're reporting, we want it to be unprecedented. Well, actually, that wasn't how ancient writers approached their writing. In fact, what they wanted was to be able to demonstrate that what they were doing had precedence, that others had already written about it, helped bolster and helped people appreciate the truth of what was being said. And so Luke wants to go to lengths to let us know that many others have undertaken to draw up an account of the life of Jesus. These would have included written accounts and also oral or spoken accounts. By the time that Luke sat down to write, there are likely at least two other written accounts of the life of Jesus, one written by Matthew, the other written probably first by Mark. But there are also oral reports, people who had still seen Jesus with their own eyes and were able to speak of their own experiences. Indeed, Luke goes on to note that they were handed down, just as they were handed down, by those from whom first were eyewitnesses. It's not a stretch, is it, to imagine Luke listening and writing down the story spoken to him by others. Every good news reporter has its sources, and Luke had his too. In fact, about a third of Luke's account of Jesus' life is unique to Luke. You won't find it in any of the other accounts. So Luke no doubt felt that work still needed to be done in portraying and describing and depicting the life of Jesus. Eyewitnesses are important, aren't they? They're important in a news story. They're important in a dispute in court. The testimony and the validity of an eyewitness account helps those who are listening make up their minds and choose to believe or not that what is being said is true. Well, Luke goes on to say that not only is there precedent, not only have others written about the life of Jesus, not only are there first eyewitness accounts that have been listened to and handed down, not only does Luke have his other sources, he also makes sure that his readers know that he says, I have carefully investigated everything from the beginning. I was reading an article the other day on a dispute between the BMJ, the British Medical Journal, which is an independent peer-reviewed journal, and Facebook. And the topic was fact-checking, because the BMJ had released an article on Facebook where those employed by Facebook to check the facts had censored what had been written, only to discover that they had egg on their face, that the BMJ, being a respectable and reputable source, had been very careful to deliver only what was verifiable and true. That resulted in some embarrassment for Facebook. But fact-checking is important. We want to know that what we believe is true. Sometimes we read articles in the newspaper, we watch things online on YouTube, or we watch the news, and things are fed to us, and sometimes there's a nagging suspicion in our minds. Is this true? Can it really be trusted? What are the sources? Well, Luke wants us to know that he has carefully investigated everything from the very beginning. And indeed, he says he has written an orderly account. Not only has he heard and recorded and listened and put together, he's been very deliberate in the way that he has ordered what's before us. Well, also in these verses, we find out to whom Luke has produced this work. He's written it for Theophilus. Now, one of the annoying things about stories and things like this that are often true, often eyewitness accounts work together, is that though we know it's for Theophilus, we have no idea who Theophilus is. We know nothing about him. We don't know if he's Greek. We don't know if he's Jewish. We don't know if he's a believer in Jesus or if he's an unbeliever. There's a couple of things we do know. We do know that he has heard things about Jesus already. Indeed, Luke says that the purpose of writing is so that he might be certain of the things that he's been taught. So we know that he's heard some of the stories, he knows something about Jesus, but we don't know what. We don't even know if he's a believer or not. Many scholars do believe that Theophilus was a patron, that actually he funded this work so that he would be able to receive it and make up his own mind. These days, in the era of Patreon, everyone is online asking for you to buy them a cup of coffee so that they can produce their next video. In ancient days, this was the work that Luke did was a painstaking work that would have taken a long time and needed financial support in order for him to be able to do it. It's very likely that Theophilus was, if not the sole patron, the major patron, and so Luke has dedicated and written his account to him. So as we bring our first looking through Luke to a close, I want to just finish by unpacking the purpose with which Luke writes. He says this, he writes an orderly account in verse 4 so that you, Theophilus, may know the certainty of the things that you've been taught. You can imagine Theophilus having all kinds of questions. Is Christianity what I believed it to be? Is it really true? Is it really the way that we know and experience God? Perhaps he once believed, but as the early church began to suffer at the hands of the Romans and others, maybe doubt began to creep in. Well, if this was true, why would God allow these people to suffer so much? You can imagine the question being asked, can we really be sure that Jesus is the fulfillment of God's promises and that he brings God's salvation both now and in the future? They're the big questions that are being asked here. And I'm sure there are many people like myself who have had those kind of questions and continue to have them. You may even have those questions as you watch this video. Is it really true? And maybe you doubt, maybe you're not sure. Maybe you've had a bad experience of church. Maybe you've suffered at the hands of Christians. Maybe you've watched the way in which churches can get into fights and arguments and behave at times really badly. Maybe you're conscious, as I've been recently these past few years, of some of the evils that have been done by people who claim the name of God or claim the name of Jesus, who represent the church. Well, all of those things might lead you to wonder, to doubt, to ask those questions. And Luke's purpose is that by taking us to the source, by looking for ourselves, we might be able to strip back all the cultural things that overlay how we think and how we look at things, to get back to the heart of the matter, to ask the question afresh, is this really true? Luke intends that we resolve these questions with a resounding yes. But in order for us to get there, he wants us to know that his account is carefully considered, that it isn't just a random throwing together of ideas or wives' tales or things that he heard on the street, that he's examined it, he's investigated it, and he's been very careful. And so I think if that's true, then it's important for us to be very careful in the way that we read it, to read it with an open mind, to read it with an open heart, to investigate for ourselves and examine. So if we're going to believe in this, then we need to do the hard work of thinking about it. I think that's not only right for us to do that, I think it also respects the effort and energy that Luke went into producing this account. So there you have it, week 1, looking through Luke. I can't wait for you to join me on the journey as we ask this question, who is Jesus? Can this account be trusted? And if so, then what does it mean for me? Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you next time. Thanks so much for watching, and if you made a comment, thanks for participating. Open to suggestions too, so let us know what would be helpful. If you did get something out of it, I'd love it if you just like and subscribe to our channel. Hit the like bell notification, hit the like. What it does, it really helps the YouTube algorithm and gets these out to more and more people. So we're not trying to build a massive following or a massive channel. We're actually just trying to communicate the truth of who Jesus is. And if that's something that resonates with you, we'd love your support by doing those 2 simple things. Thank you. See ya.